So.
Before we get to them, let's jump into some football. BYU now with 19 portal signings, including a young guy we were talking about last week because he was here visiting, Keelan Marion. He comes from UConn, and the buzz inside everything is that this is an NFL kid.
Yeah, this is a big addition to the receiver room, and he's got great speed. He's a UConn transfer, and early on they were targeting him, and we're hoping to be able to get things academically right so that he could get into a program, into a grad program, and things were kind of not looking great, and then they turned, and all of a sudden he was on campus last week, and he had some big schools that were after him, and he's going to jump right in and have a huge impact for BYU. He committed to East Carolina. Yeah. Changed his mind. I think he really wanted BYU all along. So we were on the show last week when we were doing the show when he committed to BYU because he was on campus. He announced that commitment on Wednesday. 6 feet, 200 pounds, great speed, great hands, goes up and gets the football, tracks the ball, great ball skills. So we're really excited. And remember, BYU already had a pretty solid receiver room before he joined, with Cody Epps also announcing that he was coming back. Right. And now you add Keelan, and it's a big deal.
Before we get to the next guy, a shout out to Mike Z, just me, live from Beaumont, Texas. Welcome, Mike, and we're happy to have everyone joining us from around the world. Camden Garrett, cornerback, transfers in from Jay Hill's former program at Weber State, 5'11", 175. He's got a season left. Anybody coming from Weber State on the defensive side of the ball, actually on the roster, coming to BYU, has the stamp of approval of Jay Hill. And so I'm all for it. I haven't met this kid, but if Jay Hill likes him, he's got a spot, and maybe a starting spot, if not at least a backup at cornerback.
Remember that Weber State last year had one of the, if not the top secondary in FCS. And NFL potential guys there, right? So when you get anybody out of that secondary to BYU, you're in great shape, especially guys that have played that many games. And BYU was looking for depth at corner. They were looking for depth at safety. When you get a great corner like that, there's an opportunity to maybe take a corner or two that are currently a little taller with some range and go get some more depth at safety by moving them and having them cross-train. So, yeah, that's another big get. And believe me, if Jay Hill didn't think they could compete at this level,
they wouldn't be here.
And remember, Jay coached in the Pac-12. He knows what it takes to be able to compete. They would not have offered Camden out of the portal, and so he'll have big impact.
Scheduling news: ESPN says they're going to announce the times and locations of the first 3 games of the season next Wednesday, May 31st. Right. So let's look at the Big 12 schedule. And so we're just going to get the first 3, but Sam Houston's a home game, Southern Utah's a home game, and then at Arkansas, that'll give us, there'll be a jolt of enthusiasm. For one, we'll know what time those games are. We'll then know what time the flyovers are. Right. Because, if they're in the middle of the night, you're not going to get a jet over. But also what channel, and if they're ESPN Plus, then that brings in us.
Yeah, there's a chance we could be doing those.
So anyway, May 31st, Wednesday, they'll announce the first 3 weeks of the season for everybody. It's not the NFL schedule release, but at least they've caught the vision of, hey, let's do some stuff and generate some buzz.
And how different is BYU's schedule? You just saw this schedule in its entirety graphically, and you have Sam Houston, Southern Utah, and then Arkansas. I think in future years, there won't be Arkansas on the road in that third game. Right. But that was a commitment based on the contract when Arkansas came here. Rarely do you get an SEC team when BYU's in independence to agree to come to Provo. And they did, and BYU honored their return trip down there, which I think is great. But I think you'll see another G5 game in that third week, because there's no reason to go out there and schedule craziness unless it's Utah, or if it's Utah on occasion, that's okay.
Sure,
right?
absolutely.
Or if there's a big preseason game that they can be involved in.
If Alabama wants to play.
If Bama wants to play in the kickoff classic, go ahead, right? Absolutely. You can't be hurt by that. But outside of that, but notice Sam Houston, Southern Utah, it's an opportunity to gel. It's an opportunity for the new quarterback to get his feet under him, to get some timing down, to do all of that, to establish depth. The last 10 years, BYU just jumps right into it. And they go P5, 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 and then they're beat up, and they've never really had a chance to explore their depth.
And it's what's left.
Right.
We're going to play the rest of the season with what's left.
This is such a better setup, although once they get those first two done,
It's on.
it's Murderer's Row. But it's going to be fun.
Athlon announced their all Big 12 preseason honors. So everything's a first this time around with the Big 12. So here are the Cougars that earned some preseason honors. Now, there's a lot of the Big 12 that doesn't know anything about BYU and what we've got. So let's run down the list. We start with Aiden Robbins. He's a 1,000-yard rusher. He makes second team all Big 12. Big deal?
I think it's a huge compliment.
There's a lot of running backs in the Big 12.
I think that's a huge compliment for him to be preseason second team all conference without having, coming from UNLV. And mind you, he's got great film and he's legitimate, and we know that from watching him play against quality opponents. But that's a huge compliment. There's good running backs in that league.
Let's go to the third team.
Cody Epps is on that third team, along with Kingsley Suamataia. And
think about this. The third team, we're talking about 14 teams in the Big 12.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of receivers. Cody Epps in the third team. I don't know how many receivers he bumps out by making the third team, but it's more than a few.
That's also impressive. Here's the thing, though. Kingsley, I've seen projected in multiple projections to be a first-round draft pick next year. First-round draft picks aren't on the third team. He won't be. He'll be a first-team all-conference guy next year. If he stays healthy, Kingsley will be a first-team all-conference left tackle.
On the fourth team, you've got Connor Pay, the center, Tyler Batty, defensive end, Ben Bywater, linebacker, and Micah Harper. Those four on the fourth team.
Yeah, I think any recognition that you get at this point as a newcomer to the league is a compliment. And all of those guys worthy. I would not be surprised. Ben Bywater's led this team in tackles 2 years in a row, and the defense now is set up to funnel everything to him. He's going to have 100 tackles this year, and so I think you'll see him higher. Tyler's going to be able to come off that edge and rush more. So the skill set of these guys is being recognized by them being on the preseason teams. But especially on the defensive side of the ball, they haven't seen Tyler Batty or Ben Bywater or even Micah Harper at that strong safety play in this new defense, which is way more aggressive. So their numbers, I think, will be significantly better than they've been in the past, and they're basing this fourth team on what their numbers have been in the past.
Hobbs Nyberg, fourth team as a punt returner.
Yeah, and
that's cool.
And Hobbs is going to get quite a bit of play in slot receiver this year. He's now up in the where he'll be in that rotation at inside receiver.
So those are the all Big 12 preseason honors from Athlon. There'll be others, but this is the first list out today, and so it's fun to talk about it. Overall records, College Football Report put something out. The overall records of the 2020s. So, and remember, we started 2020 with COVID. That was the COVID season, right?
Right.
2021, 22, and we're getting ready for 23. So number one, the overall record belongs to Georgia at 37-3.
Yeah, no kidding.
Alabama's number two, you figure, at 37-4.
Those are two not surprises.
Yeah, I think the wins and losses are against each other. Cincinnati of the Big 12 in at 31-6. Clemson at 31-8.
Yeah,
and then you got Notre Dame.
Yeah, and I think Cincinnati is one that I didn't think of. Like, if you would have just said to me, hey, name the top 10 programs in college football in terms of wins for the last 10 years, I don't know that what I would have thought. I wouldn't have thought of Cincinnati, but they've been phenomenal. They've been in the college football playoff.
Yeah.
And so very deserving and great record. You always think of Clemson, Georgia, not in that order. You think of Georgia, Alabama, Clemson in that order.
And then you throw Ohio State in there. They're at number 6 at 29-5.
Notre Dame actually surprised me that they're 30-8.
Yeah.
And they play a pretty good schedule every year, right? So Notre Dame's at 5th, Ohio State's at 6 at 29-5, Notre Dame at 30-8.
Hey, look who's number 7.
I actually was surprised by this. Did you go, what?
Yeah. That's why I said, we're talking about this on the show.
29-9.
BYU at number 7. The 7th best overall record in college football since the start of 2020. We're counting the 2020 season.
And when you count their 2022 Pac-12 championship or 2021 Pac-12
they
championship,
did
they did get that.
Right behind BYU, there's Michigan at 27-7, then Oklahoma State,
but
and
Big 12?
number 10 Oklahoma of the Big 12. But BYU sitting there at number 7 over the last since 2020.
Isn't that amazing?
3 seasons.
Yeah, and Utah's not in the top 10.
No.
So we'll just leave that at that.
Here's another one that's interesting. At Super West Sports tweeted an interesting stat. The most touchdowns in the last 10 years. Most touchdowns since 2013.
Let's just take a look back a decade, right?
And you got Oregon number 1. This is the teams in the West. Mm-hmm. Oregon number 1 with 430, and that's number 4 nationally.
Right, because I think we could talk about the same team. I think Bama, Georgia, Clemson are probably 1, 2, 3, and then Oregon's 4, right? No, actually, I think Oklahoma might be in that top 3.
Then you got Boise State at 384. And then BYU, number 3, 372, followed by Washington at 342, and then UCLA. So those are the top 5.
Yeah, that's impressive.
In the last 10 years, scoring touchdowns here in the West.
Yeah, that's BYU. And BYU's been a little up and down defensively. I expect them to be really good this next year defensively.
Yeah.
But if they can keep it rolling offensively, you know what the key to that is? Good quarterback play year after year. And BYU hopefully has their 3rd NFL quarterback in a row that's going to suit up this fall.
Right.
They've had back-to-back quarterbacks drafted.
And we had Jake Retzlaff on BYU Sports Nation the other day. Mm-hmm. He thinks he's going to be the 4th, and he just might be.
He could be.
He's in a system that produces NFL quarterbacks.
Yep. And he was the top junior college quarterback in the country last year.
Some key dates before we get the Whitings in here. July 1st, BYU joins the Big 12. Later that day, Journey rocks Stadium of Fire. It's going to be awesome.
And you're hosting, right?
Yeah, I've got some of that stuff, which will be
job.
good.
You going to hang with Journey back there?
I will do some hanging with Journey.
Can I come back with you?
Yeah, I might even come on stage and sing Faithfully instead of their singer.
Okay,
and then everyone would leave.
I do not need to hear that.
That would never happen. July 12th and 13th, Big 12 Media Days in Arlington, Texas. Mm-hmm. And then NFL Rookies Report on the 18th. That means Hall, Nakua, Freeland, and all the free agent signees going into camp for BYU.
That's right. And then how about July 25th when we start our first After Further Review? The first episode will be 11 weeks from tonight. It'll be our 10th season of After Further Review.
That's how close we are to football, 11 weeks. That's not that long.
It's kind of fun. And when we look to that, once that gets going, then it seems like there's news all year long, but once that gets going, there's news then big time every week.
Somebody twisted an ankle or had their nails done.
No, that's not the kind of news.
Everything. Every day there's something.
Done, that's good. That's good. So August 3rd, the Jets and Zach Wilson will line up against the Browns and Sione Takitaki in the NFL Hall of Fame game. So that'll be the kickoff of the NFL season.
The only good thing about that game is that once it comes on, it's on NBC. Once it's on, then football's on every single week until the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
College, pro, whatever.
Yep.
But it has to show up, and it happens to show up in the Hall of Fame game. That's why I watch, even though after 2 minutes, there's no one that you've ever recognized on the field.
Right. And last year, we would have said early in the season, well, the Jets are playing, but we're not going to see much of Zach because he's their starter. But now with Rodgers there, Zach could play a lot of snaps in that game.
And he should.
And Sione's coming back from an injury, so Sione will probably play a lot of snaps. So we'll see a couple of BYU guys with a lot of snaps in that game. That'll be fun.
Just around the corner, August 3rd. And then, of course, September 2nd, Sam Houston at BYU.